man. Green, green.
Testing. 1, 2.
All right, we'll do some theme music.
This guy was great.
I love Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
I still love Mr. Rogers.
He's a Presbyterian minister and never pushed his views on anyone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Man of the cloth.
Did you guys ever see that meme that was going around where it was like, Mr. Rogers was a huge badass in Vietnam and he like killed 50 men and all that other stuff? Did you ever
I did
see
not
that?
see
Yeah.
that. But did he? I
think
can't
so.
imagine.
Can they hear us commenting on Mr.
Oh,
Rogers? I never understood why he took off one sweater and put on another.
He's
Yeah,
gotta put on his house sweater.
Leaves his tie on.
And he's got to put on his house shoes.
To have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to.
I would like a house sweater.
Yeah. There's a little cardigan.
Yeah.
Let's make the
Ooh, this
most
one's
of
got a
this
zipper.
Mhm.
I like it.
day.
Of course, I
Oh,
like those
all the way up and then half down. Here we go. House shoes. Get 'em. Man, there were some sweet kicks on Reddit that said house shoe.
Oh, really?
They're like Nike and they're all puffy and comfy. They looked great. It's like $100. I can't buy house shoes for $100.
So do you ever catch that Daniel Tiger on TV?
Daniel Tiger. No.
Daniel Tiger is, of course, a spin-off of him and it's now
Oh.
animated.
Oh no.
But I miss characters on TV that are just kind like that.
Oh yeah. My favorite was King Friday. Every Friday the 13th was his birthday, and Mr. Rogers did that so that kids whose birthdays were on Friday the 13th
Mm.
wouldn't be sad.
Oh, yeah. King Friday. Well, what's up, guys? Episode 17. Project Ion.
Already 17, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Project Ion Podcast featuring Jimmy the Jimbo Rosendahl, Andy Spurgeon, and that other Kai.
Adam, how are you?
Good. How about
Good.
yourself, sir?
I'm doing fine. Okay, let me say my lines here.
So your lines.
We can be found online at projectionpodcast.home.blog.
You have to say it like that.
We're also on
You have to say it
iTunes.
like this.
Search for us. We're also on YouTube. Email projectionpodcast, one word, at gmail.com. Guys, bad news. We lost a sub. We're at 30. We had 31.
We lost a
A
sub.
substitute teacher?
This is a subscriber. to our
Someone-
YouTube
Oh,
channel.
no.
Yeah.
Unsubscribed us.
Oh no, who was it?
I don't know,
Ouch.
but
Wonder if it's Eric
We're
Hansen.
going the wrong direction.
yeah.
Shemp, you need to comment if you're.
Did we piss somebody off when we
Well,
talked about placentas
I was
last week?
wondering if it was maybe the placenta thing. So I'm wondering if we ought to do one of those cheesy apology things.
Megan did say it was a bit much, but she watched the whole episode, so
We even gave recipes. I don't know what the deal was.
So, anyways, yeah, that's like a 3% drop in our subscribership, man.
Well, if
like
you're not
that.
you're a nobody if you're not making waves of some kind, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
So, maybe this is the first step to.
So, yeah, for those that don't know, on episode 16, we
trigger warning.
we watched a video about free-range parenting that included an image of a placenta that was salted and had like chow mein
Some
noodles,
nice chow mein
it was
noodles,
it
little
was
cheese,
the hint that it was
rose
eaten.
petals,
You gotta have texture.
something like that.
Well, that's exactly right.
And we made a bunch of scathing commentary that didn't take free-range parenting seriously. So we are deeply sorry for anyone who we may have offended.
I'm not. I'm not sorry. If you're so fragile that you can't hear a recipe for a placenta, Feiji,
We've got a 3-part plan for improving things going forward. We've severed our professional relationship with Kyle Grems, who is
One.
he's responsible for I would say the most egregious and offensive comments.
Typically.
Yep.
that's why you don't see him today, folks.
Spurge has converted to being a man of the cloth now.
Yep.
And I am not going to be doing conspiracy glasses for a while. So That's our 3-part plan.
Three-part
And
plan?
I'm
Yeah.
just unapologetically handsome over here. I just
Oh man, I didn't notice the camera rig you got in front of Adam there.
yeah. Oh, it's fancy. You know,
That's another. Yeah, that's another thing. We need a tripod, probably,
Yeah.
or some sort of.
I've got a miniature tripod I can bring
Okay.
over.
I really
yeah.
like that.
A
The
Kleenex.
409 and the
Camera, we
409
can show
bottle.
our camera tripod on here.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
It is. Well, so for those of you who are just itching to know how we have this set up here, there's a box of Kleenex on the table, and on top of that box of Kleenex, I can't see the other side, but I think it's a Formula 409 bottle.
Mhm.
And sitting on top of that Formula 409 bottle, balancing precariously, is the camera facing me.
That's right. Well, it's just how you do it on a shoestring budget, you know.
That's
I
right.
mean,
Someday we can afford a
Shep's check
tripod.
hasn't cleared yet
no.
from Shep's PC repair.
Yeah, I mean, we may have to cut ties with him too. It's just not coming through.
I'd say we could hook up Alan, but he already sponsors a podcast.
Oh, does he really?
Jeff's got one.
Oh, Jeff has a podcast. Okay.
God, what's he call it? It's True Capitalist
Ooh.
is the name of his podcast.
Hmm.
It airs on the Killer Bee, as well as on YouTube and
Really?
podcast things.
Well, that's kinda cool.
That's exciting. Maybe, how do we get on Killer Bee?
Thursdays at 5:45. I've been on it a couple times.
No way. Cool.
Oh yeah. He interviewed me when I first got here, and then he just kind of called the store one day. He goes, "Hey, you got a minute?" Yeah. What's up? He goes, "Joining me live from Esterville Drug, Andy Spurgeon here to talk about immunizations."
So he just called you up.
He just called me up.
No
the phone.
notice or
No
anything?
notice. And then he just hangs up on me, and
Okay, see ya.
it works. I mean, it works just fine. But
Yeah, it'd be fun to get on the radio, but
oh,
we
dude,
would,
and
like,
he's buddies with Fran Tarkington, so he
we
has
would-
Fran on
yeah,
every week.
That's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
We'd really have to tone it down a lot, though.
Correct.
I mean, yeah.
You mean my language?
I can't be dropping F-bombs every episode, and
It wouldn't be good for business.
yeah, not good for business for
It's
sure.
Well, not for their business, but it might make people watch us.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Roger Jacobson doesn't seem like the type to be amused.
Yeah, I mean, right now the podcast war chest is in the negative integers, so I don't think we could take an FCC fine or anything like that
Oh,
for foul language.
That's how-
Well, shall we? Speaking of being offended, should we talk about
yeah.
Gary Dolphin here?
Yeah, let's talk about Dolph.
Okay.
Poor guy.
I think that guy can't catch a break. Didn't he just come back after criticizing the point guard for the Hawkeyes?
He was on a 2-game suspension for criticizing freshman. God, I can't think of his name. He isn't very. He's not my favorite player.
He had his head down and he was dribbling into a double.
Constantly, and Dolph thought he was off the air. Hot mic'd him.
Mhm.
Got a 2-game suspension for that. Comes back for like another, I don't know, he's probably been back 10, 15 games, and then drops a
And
King
then-
Kong bomb.
Yeah, the King Kong thing happened.
So
So,
what exactly did he say?
Let's see if we can get a real quote
Do
here.
we have that?
okay, I'll start reading this. Longtime radio voice Gary Dolphin has been suspended from broadcasting Iowa basketball games for the rest of the season. The action comes following comments that Dolphin made during the post-game portion of Iowa's radio broadcast of Tuesday's home game against Maryland, in which he referred to the Terrapins' Bruno Fernando, who was black, as King Kong.
So if it was white, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess so. But, yep, anyways, suspension. So I guess it was Learfield Sports that suspended him, wasn't the team.
Yes,
right?
no, it was Learfield who owns all the broadcast
broadcasting,
rights.
Yep.
Okay.
So. The reference to King Kong, a fictional gorilla in the 1933 movie by that name, happened as Dolphin and analyst Bobby Hansen wrapped the Hawkeyes' 66-65 loss, in which Maryland made 12 of its final 23-point attempts. And then Fernando, who stands 6'10", 245, recorded the go-ahead tip with 7.8 seconds remaining. So, I mean, it was because he was being strong in the paint.
Correct.
Under the basket.
Going up hard
Yep.
against Tyler Cook, who's a monster in his own right,
Mhm.
and is probably going to go to the NBA next year.
And then Fernando was King Kong at the end of the game. That's the quote that did him in.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, because there was like a thrown up shot, and he got up, tipped it in, and that put him ahead by 1.
So I can understand if he was talking negatively about the guy and calling him a gorilla or something.
Correct.
But
That's
saying
different.
this guy was like King Kong climbing buildings, I assume is probably what he meant.
I think so. I think
So-
it's fair to say Menu is being strong.
So, two things. One, where's that line where you can compliment somebody and compare them to a strong fictional character, and where is, the line where, you're talking about somebody in a negative manner and comparing them to an ape? And then, have we become too fragile?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that. To me, it's he in no way was dehumanizing the man. He in no way was calling him an animal. He was referencing his play, like Adam said, in a positive light. And Learfield got it in their head that this was going to be the next thing that goes on Twitter and ruins their image.
Right.
And took action because it was immediate. It was the next day. He was gone. There was no Twitter outrage.
No.
There was no big hashtag Dolph the dipshit or something like that. This was all preventative action on Learfield.
Yeah, was it a thing where they probably didn't want to deal with the negative PR? I mean, I think we've talked about that before in previous episodes where rather than deal with the fallout, places will preemptively, oh, we're sorry, and this is terrible, and we're firing everybody, and that kind of thing. Just as to not risk that, that image. So,
right. I mean, to me, it's pretty ridiculous.
Well, what if Gary Dolphin had said he was an animal under the basket,
right,
or something?
That would probably have been different. That may have been socially acceptable.
So it's all about the ape thing,
I think
right?
it's all about the ape connotation.
Because there's would the argument be then there's because of the historical comparisons to black people and apes that were made by racist individuals in the past
Trump.
that it's it's turned into sort of a taboo concept to even mention a black person and an ape in the same sentence.
I think a lot of things have become taboo things to say, and you can't say that without people becoming offended, to the point where they're throwing bricks through windows. But
right, but and I get if you're truly dehumanizing someone, calling them an ape, implying that they're less evolved, essentially. They're closer to the common ancestor than you are as a white person. I think that's very offensive. I don't think that was the case here.
Yeah.
And I think Learfield thought it may get blown into that.
Right.
And so they just preemptively jerked him out.
And if somebody wants to refer to me as King Kong in a positive way, I'm all for it. I mean, he was how big with, one hand he could carry a woman up a skyscraper, fend off airplanes. People could shoot him, and he's like, no, I mean that's a tough character there. And I really disagree with how they handle that. I think I don't even know if a clarification would have been necessary.
We got a comment from Kyle. He said,
I don't know if we should give him airtime.
Oh yeah, that's right. We severed professional ties with Kyle due to his
placenta
commentary. So yeah, well,
I completely agree with what he says.
I do too. And so of course you can all read what he says if you're watching this.
Just debating why this is even an issue illustrates how ridiculous the suspension is.
And that really is the point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that a hint you want us to switch topics there, Kyle?
I was hoping he and Fran were going to get all hammered together during the games because Fran's out for one more.
Yeah.
Now, he won't be there for, I think it's Wisconsin.
Now, what did Fran do?
On Thursday, Fran got hot.
Was it the post game
No. Well, yes, that's yeah. This was no, I don't think it was. Well, yeah, it was. I think that's what finally got him suspended. His son got teed up for arguing. And then he got teed up shortly after for arguing, and then post game he called them a bunch of cheating motherfuckers. The referees. And that got caught on a mic or something. And so he got a 2-game sit. He was there the other night for senior night. And did all the stuff with like Nick Bear and that for senior night, but then he had to go watch it in his office.
Oh, yeah.
So the big question is him being gone for 2 games really a loss for the Hawkeyes?
Oh, I think so. They can't get rid of him. Then they lose a 5-star and his son. They lose Wieskamp. They lose his other son. I mean that's going to be half the points next season.
That's true.
His son coming up this year. He's a senior this year in high school. Connor?
Yeah.
Or Connor's on.
Okay.
Connor's on the
know.
team. The
I
other
can't
one's
keep track of
coming.
them all.
There's 2.
Mhm.
And the one on the team now is like a 3. The kid coming up, I guess, is a 5-star recruit. He's supposed to be just a stud.
Well, if you think about last year at this time where their team was at,
Oh, they're bad.
it's a huge turnaround.
Yeah,
that's very true.
They doing so much better, and I think it was do or die kind of for the McCaffrey
Patrick.
administration, because you'd had however many years
to build.
It's his recruits that are now
yeah.
seniors and stuff on the
Yeah.
team and all of that. So if you don't turn yourself into a tournament team after that amount of time,
Right.
you're just probably not going to get it done.
Made the tournament like once, maybe twice since he's been coach.
Yeah, gosh,
Yeah.
Not much.
How
Well,
many?
I think Iowa
I can
State's
think
made
of-
it more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've been good though.
And Drake's
Mhm.
made it more.
They weren't good.
Northern
last year.
Iowa's made it more.
Yeah, I think the Hawks have made it like twice, if I remember right. Maybe
And since McCaffrey's,
since McCaffrey.
how many years has he been the coach? I can't,
Probably 6 to 8.
because he took over after Licklider, right?
I think yes.
And that was roughly, Licklider was like 10 to 7 years ago, something like that.
it might have been 10 years.
I think something like that. It'd be, can't remember, but it got real bad with Licklider. Kyle and I went to a game. We went and visited Kevin for a weekend and hit up a game down there, and it was great. You like $20, no advance ticket, just go virtually sit on the floor,
Yeah.
nobody there, didn't have to like fight for parking.
I haven't been to a Hawkeye game since they lost to the Drake Bulldogs in 2000 and I want to say 2010, somewhere in there, when they were rated and lost to Drake at Drake.
Let's see.
Kyle says twice,
He took over in 2010.
2010. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is.
He reached the finals of the NIT
I remember that.
in
That was
13.
that was a Devin Marble team, I
Yes.
Rain Man just told us that they lost to Gonzaga one year and Tennessee the next.
think. Yep.
But he's kind of he picked he met his wife. She was a volleyball player at Notre Dame while he was an assistant coach,
Oh, interesting.
and she is just as fiery as he is.
Okay.
Like if you see a real tall blonde lady sitting right behind the bench,
Mhm.
just screaming her guts out every game, like that's her.
That's funny.
Her name's Margaret.
I really get a kick out of the Franz Red Face
Oh man, the
Twitter account.
the tomato meter.
Yeah,
yeah,
good stuff. Adam, if you're not familiar, there's a Twitter account that's just devoted to Fran being mad,
Just red face.
red
That's
face, and
funny.
yeah,
I'll have
'cause
to check that
there's
out.
great pictures and memes and stuff of Fran just like going.
Yeah, because his face is always super distorted. He's got like a vein popping out of his forehead.
I kind of like that though. I mean,
I need it. I wish we had that in football.
yeah.
Farron's, he's just chomping Big Red. Actually, I looked it up. It's Bubblicious. You remember that stuff?
Mm.
Bubblicious is what.
Really? Bubblicious?
That's what he chews on.
Does he ever blow bubbles? I wonder.
I don't think so, but he chomps the shit out of that gum. I've only seen him get upset like once as a Hawkeye head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he's like cool as a cucumber no matter what.
Yeah.
What
Post
flavor does he
games,
chew on?
I don't know.
Watermelon?
Post games always just like, well,
Oh, we didn't quite execute.
quite
or,
execute
you know,
today.
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm gonna look at film and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully come out next week.
Build on this week.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just all platitudes and
Yeah.
you know that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I want a little more Fran
Yeah.
on the football field.
Little yeah.
A little more screaming.
Well, one of the legendary moments I think about in college basketball coaching is Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight
chucking the chair. Yeah.
Chair chucker.
And I think Fran smashed an iPad or something once.
I
That-
believe so.
Well,
But,
yeah, but you have to have a Bobby Knight team if you want to act like Bobby Knight. If Fran doesn't have a Bobby Knight team.
He's sick, I guess. What was the article I read about Bobby Knight this week? Speaking of sick, Alex Trebek. Stage
Oh.
4 pancreatic cancer.
Oh no, that's gonna be a loss when he passes away.
Oh man.
He's gonna die in a month or two.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that's there's no coming back from that.
There's a 1% survival.
Wow.
rate.
So
I
there's
hadn't heard
essentially
that.
No coming back from that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wonder how.
It just came out this afternoon.
Yeah, I wonder how far back the tapings go. You know, I mean, they make it seem like there's a fresh new episode of Jeopardy every day, but I'm sure it's a 6-month delay or something.
Right. See, I
but-
don't know about Jeopardy. I know that Pat Sajak and Vanna White crank them all out in a month. An
Really?
entire year's worth. They'll do like 6-7 episodes a day.
Hmm.
So they work a month a year.
Wow.
There was a book that Bobby Knight wrote. I'm trying to think of the name. Oh, it was A Season on the Brink, A Year with Bobby Knight and the Indiana Hoosiers. That's a book that makes you want to coach college basketball.
Hmm.
It's absolutely fantastic read if you haven't.
Hmm.
I don't know a lot about basketball. I played for about 2 weeks in 7th grade before I quit.
Mhm.
But reading that kind of a book and understanding, you know, what a coach is thinking, what the players are thinking, how they're coaching in between games,
Hmm.
and how much effort really goes into coaching a basketball team. It's absolutely fantastic read.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot more to it. I mean, you think, well, you got to make sure you call a timeout when you need one or something like
Yeah.
that, or make the substitutions. But of
Sure.
course, it's
Well, and you're also
Way more
dealing with
complicated.
kids in college.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
all the issues that go along with that, the
Mhm.
partying, the grades, the
Hormones.
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know, I was quite the baller in my youth, playing on the B team, and I shot a free throw over the backboard one time in the big gym
Oh, yeah.
at the middle school.
Yeah.
Launched that bitch.
Hey, well, you know what? It happens.
Fouled out of every game except one freshman year of high school. I had 4.
I remember playing. Maybe it must have been AAU with you,
Mm-hmm.
like in 5th grade. And I remember we went to Sway City or something, and we had kind of a rough game. They had a kid that was like 5'7", you know.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he just
Just a
like
monster.
he was a
Towering.
monster. Yeah, it was a bunch of 11-year-olds or whatever. But
King
then on
Kong.
the keep kids off drugs dare end of the year party was at Arnold's Park, and we
Yeah.
ran into him. You remember that? I
I
think.
kind of half-assed
Yeah,
too.
I think we got into a little bit of a
Little
scrape.
scrape.
Yeah.
A little
Really?
scuffle.
Mm-hmm.
Jim and I did. You know, we we
Fifth
took it
grade
to those
gang
kids
fight. Right.
sometimes.
Well, I was hiding behind
I
Spurge.
was gonna say because I can imagine he was a fighter in 5th grade.
I had a big mouth. That's
Well, I know
about
that.
it.
He was little though. Jim used to be small.
Yeah, I was pretty wiry in those days.
You're fast though.
Yeah, I could-
I had size 12 feet at that point. Size 13 by 7th grade.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd walk around in between Spurge and/or Tay or Colby
Colby.
Morberg. Or, yeah, so between the three of us, we could have
So
taken
you're
about
smacked-
anybody in town.
Smack
yeah.
talking with these towering guys on
Yeah,
the other side
right.
of you.
What you gonna do?
Exactly.
Help me out, Spurge.
I do remember that kid.
Well, I think Aaron Olson was in the middle of it too, because I kind
Probably.
of feel like he was the one that sort of took it from just,
Ole had a mouth.
yeah,
On him. He still does.
yep. Yes, I remember we were riding the Himalaya, and you remember that thing how it
Goes around
super
and
fast,
kind of, yeah.
and you guys put me on the end, so
So we were
I'm getting
skishing.
crushed by
Crushing it.
Spurge and Colby at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny.
We get off the thing, and here's the Sway City guys, and then a lot of jawing back
Chirping.
and forth. Yeah, and then we start shoving and
Punks.
stuff. Yeah.
Punks
Nice.
at the
At
Dare
a
Day.
police sponsored do not do drugs, you guys start a brawl.
Mhm.
Dare. What a joke.
Yep.
They still do that?
I don't know.
One of the teachers.
Mrs.
weigh
Fagery
in.
taught us our dare class. And she was somebody to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. Is she still a police officer?
No, she's
She
retired.
is not.
Okay.
She now teaches
at
at
the
Iowa
college.
Lakes Community College.
I see her every now and then at Casey's North.
I
Mm.
like her.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sonia's nice. I used to jump my bike off her. She had like a drop off on one side of her driveway.
Oh, the curb thing.
Yeah,
Just-
right across from Josh's house.
Oh yeah, I remember that curb.
And Gellert.
Yep.
We got to get Gellert on here to talk shoes.
Yeah, we need
sometime.
to get the shoe episode needs to happen.
Talk shoes.
Yeah. Are you a shoe aficionado, Adam?
Oh yeah, I've
Like-
got a couple pairs of Allen Edmonds.
Okay.
Not tennis shoes though.
Ah,
I
okay.
don't know I'm not hip to that jive.
Ah, yeah.
I'm
Spurge
just
and I are sneakerheads.
recently into
Yeah.
the sneaker game. Since I moved to Kansas City, I
Yeah.
kind of started buying sneakers, and then they just kind of keep showing up.
Mhm. Yeah. I've had a shoe vice for 20 years.
I was gonna say,
Really?
Yeah.
oh, since he was
Oh,
a
yeah.
kid.
Yep.
Well, I
Yep.
remember you running around with Air Jordans back
Oh
when
yeah.
Yeah,
they were
Be
legit.
like, Mom, I need them.
J's, Shacknosis, and the Air Max
You-
up tempo.
You needed the height. on those.
Yeah, right.
Dude, they brought those up tempos back as a 270, the Nike Air 270
Mm,
cushion on the back,
yeah.
except it says Max instead of Air on the side. I don't know.
Interesting. To check those out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get let's get that Joe Rogan video thing going.
Yeah, this was interesting. This popped up on my Reddit last
So
night.
tell me what I'm watching here.
So the context here is that Joe Rogan had Jack Dorsey on a few
Mhm.
weeks ago
Hmm.
on his podcast originally. Jack Dorsey's the CEO of Twitter,
Yeah.
and Joe got a lot of flack for not asking hard enough questions because there's a lot of people on the internet that think Twitter's a joke because they have sort of
A selective bias.
selective
about who
bias about they
I mean,
who
everybody's
they-
got a selective bias now, but yeah.
they apply their rules, and
Differently.
it's a disparate effect on conservative voices on Twitter. Essentially, would
Okay.
be the gist of it. And so, anyways,
Well, I know Joe stands. I listen to a lot of his podcasts, and he's got a pretty independent mind. He's not tied to any. Well, we'll just say he feels the same way about Hillary Clinton that I do. But
Oh man, I'm liberal as fuck, and I hate Hillary Clinton.
socially I'm really liberal. I tend to be a little more conservative fiscally, but
mhm.
I really like what Joe Rogan has.
I
to
think
say.
I'm pretty fiscally conservative, but that's just because I want to shrink the defense budget by
Mm.
about $300 billion.
Well, I just want him to legalize marijuana. So
Correct. Also on my agenda.
Well, it's time for the Spurgeon Adam platform.
there you go. Spurge for president.
we need more political parties.
2032.
sure.
Oh fuck yes.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But
I was
that's
just
it.
reading up on like how you have to in some of these other countries, like I think it was Norway I was reading about. They have like 17 political parties. So you have to form like to get anything through anywhere, you have to form coalitions between other parties,
Mhm.
which leads to greater bargaining, which leads to more people being represented
Yeah.
by their true beliefs, not because I'm clearly not a Democrat and I'm clearly not a Republican.
Mhm.
But there's no one espousing my beliefs.
Right.
Like Bernie Sanders is close, but
I like Bernie just because I know where he stands on things. He seems to be a pretty believable character.
oh yeah,
I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I like the guy.
he's had the same platform since 1960.
Yeah.
He's been espousing the same
Yeah.
shit.
What do
There's-
you guys think about? So there was a lot. I think Bernie appealed to a lot of populist thinking in the country in 2016.
Mhm.
And what do you think about the people that were maybe originally on the Bernie camp, but then when it came down to Trump and Hillary, because of Trump's parroting of the kind of some of those populist type talking points, people were willing to jump ship from Bernie to
I think a
Trump.
lot of people just didn't like Hillary.
Yeah.
And, when you're voting for the lesser of two evils, which we've been doing pretty much every year for the last 20 years, they thought, you know what, I don't like Hillary. I don't trust her. I'm going to vote for Trump because, even if I don't know him, he can't be any worse.
Mhm.
I know I felt that way back when Obama was running against who was it the first time around? Was it Bob Dole? Was it? No, that
John
was-
McCain.
that was right, John
and,
McCain,
Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
And then again,
They didn't stand a chance in
She's
that.
such a dumb broad.
Well,
God, she was.
I mean,
They
Yeah.
very likely could have won if it wasn't for her. But anyway, that's completely beside the point. When we get to the point where we're voting for the lesser of two evils, I think that's a big determining factor.
mm,
That's what makes a lot of people jump party lines. Hey, I can't stand this person, so I'm going to vote somebody else, or I'm not going to vote at all, which is essentially the same thing.
well, yeah. Do you think people viewed Bernie as sort of anti-establishment, and then they got this sort of the same flavor out of Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I also think that Bernie Sanders was screwed by his own party, and that's the only reason he didn't get the Democratic
There was some of
nomination.
those, but no joke. I mean, he's not. That's not his party.
Yeah.
He's not a Democrat, and
No.
and that works against him in the establishment circles.
Mm.
There were a lot of Dems, diehard Dems, the people who are on their county Democratic committee and stuff, that didn't want to vote for him because he's not a Democrat.
Yeah.
Because they vote for the letter, not for the person and
Mhm.
the platform, which
Yep.
drives me crazy.
Yeah, well, it's so annoying that like you're forced to sort of weigh whatever kind of bullet point things fall under a particular
Right.
thing, and it's like, well, do I care about this more than I care about
And
something else?
And like I changed my party affiliation. I became a Democrat for about 2 weeks so I could caucus
hmm
for Bernie, and then I switched
Mm.
back to my independent. But
hmm
I don't know. It was the lesser of two evils. I didn't vote for either. I didn't vote for president. Because I couldn't vote for Hillary Clinton, but I damn sure wasn't voting for Donald Trump.
hmm Okay, well, let's get this Twitter business going here.
Okay.
We got sidetracked big time.
Using an
Really want to go carefully into this. And
You try to use a macro.
See,
using
that's
an
what happens,
algorithm,
yeah.
though, do you not miss context? I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot
Yes.
of people that say things in humor. They
or slurs within particular communities, which is perfectly reasonable. and okay.
right.
So yes, there is a danger of the algorithms missing context, and that's why we really want to go carefully into this, and this is why we've scoped it down first and foremost to doxing, which is at least first it hits our number one goal, protecting physical safety, like making sure that nothing done online will impact someone's physical safety offline on our platform. In this case, the second is that there are patterns around doxing that are much easier to see without having the context. There are exceptions, of course, because you could dox someone's public, a representative's public office phone number and email address, and the algorithm might catch that, not have the context that this is a U.S. representative, and this information is already public.
So essentially, it highlights how insanely difficult it is to monitor all of these posts. And then what is the volume? Like, what are we dealing with? Like, how many posts do you guys get a day?
Hundreds of millions of posts a day.
And how many human beings are manually reviewing any of these things?
I don't have that number. A lot.
A lot. Thousands, hundreds of thousands. How many employees you guys have?
We have 4,000 employees around the world.
That's it?
Yeah.
We have 4,000 employees. The reason
That's crazy, though, but stop and think about that. 4,000 people that are monitoring hundreds of millions of tweets?
No. We have a small team who's monitoring tweets, and some of them are employed by us. Some of them are contractors throughout the world.
So 4,000 employees total.
4,000 employees who are engineers, who are designers,
Okay.
who are lawyers.
So the
policy
number of
experts.
people-
So not just in the United States, these are representatives from other countries that are commenting on stuff that's or are monitoring posts that are happening largely in the United States, I would imagine. That was just an interesting comment that I picked on, and I just wanted to mention that. You can keep playing it.
Yeah, I watched this podcast. I'd say maybe like 75% of it
Mhm.
yesterday, and I wasn't super convinced by what Jack Dorsey and his it was like a lawyer that he brought along with him
Right.
Yeah.
to field tough questions.
I thought that's what she was.
Yeah, it was like the head of the law and policy department or something. But yeah, I mean, I wish in this clip there was actually another person at this podcast, this fellow named Tim Pool.
Oh, yeah.
Who's a commenter. I don't
Yeah.
know what YouTuber,
Personality.
journalist,
Mhm,
personality type. He's pretty sharp.
He did a few. He had a few.
Yeah,
He had a few cuts at him.
Yeah, he dug him pretty good, I think, and kind of backed him into a corner in a few instances where the one gal was like, well, okay, thanks for your feedback. We'll take that under advisement or something like that. And she
Yeah,
had no,
Towing the line.
because they can. The problem is they can come up with so many examples. It's like, well, okay, you've given us some. Here's your procedure for how you ban somebody or suspend somebody or something. And then this Pool guy is so knowledgeable in all this Twitter drama that's going on that he
Sure.
can rattle off names and stuff. And they said this and that and the other thing, and you didn't.
Didn't
For
ban
whatever
them.
reason, the Antifa's on here sending me death threats every 5 seconds or something, and you haven't done anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and we've had the conversation on this podcast before where it's a private entity. Twitter is. They can essentially do what they want to. They can limit whatever posts they want to. They can push whatever agenda they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can hire, they can farm out to whatever country they want to limit posts from whoever they wanted to.
Yeah.
And, do they have the right to do that when it's as large as it is and is permeating in our culture as it is? That's not for me to decide. I'm inclined to say they probably still do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah, and I think that was maybe some of the point that Joe and this Tim guy were trying to make is that although you are able to set up a framework however you want to for your rules and you can selectively apply them, and you guys are all from San Francisco, so you maybe kind of got this groupthink type deal going
Sure.
on, and it's just something that is just the way it is. Have at it. Just because you can do that, all those things doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And because Twitter is such a huge deal, I mean, I think one of the things that that gal said was like 75% of their users are not even in the United States. I don't know if that's accurate, but I suppose China and India, and
Right.
you start adding up all of those places.
Russia.
That's true.
Russia, sure, yeah, all these high population spots around the globe.
And troll farms. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing.
Well,
You
yeah.
know.
I mean, you've got, Russian hackers that are able to, pop out, several million tweets an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We were up to 5 simultaneous watchers. And now
Wow.
we're down to 3.
I turned my phone
Second
was
is that there are patterns around doxing that are much easier to see without having the context. There are exceptions, of course, because you could dox someone's public, a representative's public office phone number and email address, and the algorithm might catch that, not have the context that this is a U.S. representative, and this information is already public.
So essentially, it highlights how
Oh, whoops, this is repeat. My bad.
4,000 employees around the world.
that's it.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah,
we have 4,000 employees.
That's
The
the problem
reason
with my macro setup is that that's also macros on YouTube.
Oh,
so I'm
sure.
hitting a button or something, and then it's screwing me up on the vid. So I've yet to find a key for what the YouTube macros are, with the exception of the space bar that I just figured out
Right. I knew that
randomly.
one.
Yeah, but
So interesting. Here's as of January 2019, United States had 47.05 million active Twitter users. Japan came in second with 38.6. Then it drops down significantly to the UK, 13.6. China, I don't think can have Twitter.
oh yeah, maybe
I think it's behind the Great
suppose, yeah.
Firewall.
Okay.
And then fourth, this is crazy, is Saudi Arabia with 11.27 million Twitter users. Their
Hmm.
population isn't that big.
Wow.
Like, That's crazy.
It's like
Hmm.
everybody in Saudi Arabia has.
Turkey's 9 mil, and then Brazil, India, Mexico, Indonesia.
Where does the U.S. rate on that?
Oh, we're first. 47.05 million.
But there's enough people
Yeah.
outside of the U.S. that are users that apparently they only
Right.
make up about 25% according to her.
Yeah, if you add
Statistics,
everybody
yeah.
else up, I mean, sure,
Right.
that makes sense.
Well, and that was kind of this lady's argument was that she's like, well, we don't apply the robust First Amendment protections here in the United States because we have so many non-American so many international users, and in other places the free speech protections aren't so.
In lawyer speak,
substantial.
though, is there free speech protection on a private entity?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
think-
it's the First Amendment's about the government,
Right.
So no, not
Right.
not really. And that I mean that would be part of their position is that this is this is a private business. We get to make our own rules here. If you don't like it, too bad.
Well, I'm sure it's a public business. I think
yeah,
they're
publicly
publicly
traded,
owned.
but yeah, the idea
And
is
so,
this is
like,
our
sure, stockholders could come in and sue and
change
change
the
the
change
board
rules,
up,
yeah,
stuff
right.
like that. But
Mhm.
but still, it's a non-government entity.
Yeah, right.
And it's not a what's the word? Utility, like a
Mhm.
public utility.
Yep.
Which is where you like if it was a utility, if it was
Mhm.
then yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and then the argument, I guess, on the other side, as best as I can articulate it, is that the forum for free speech has changed so substantially in the tech universe that
Yeah.
Twitter has now replaced the sidewalk or the public square.
Yeah.
Facebook, etc.
Which could be an argument.
Yeah. So
I don't know how that'd go. I mean, I'm
That's something
sure
the Supreme Court will have to decide down the
it
road.
could be. Yeah, maybe
I wouldn't doubt it.
maybe it'll get to the point where it gets litigated. That would be.
It'd be interesting.
Would be
case.
interesting, yeah. Yep. Hmm.
Well, it's all in the terms and conditions.
But I mean, yeah,
yeah.
It's Apple's human sent iPad.
You don't have to sign up.
Right. Well, and it does go to the same thing though. Can they? Yes. Should they? I don't know. Someone throwing death threats. No. Like ban them. Clearly.
Well, when I listened to the stuff that she said about what we wanted, like what our policy goals are,
Mhm.
with the exception of the misgendering thing that they had in their rules, I was on board with it. I mean, like you shouldn't harass people, and if there's a pattern of harassment, targeted harassment, then you
Well,
should-
sure.
Or
What-
doxing.
misgendering. What do you
So-
mean? Like if I call you a man?
Yeah, or if you like intentionally misgender somebody on Twitter, that's a bannable offense or a suspendable offense. Apparently,
Well, how do you know if it's intentional?
good question. That was one of the themes of the episode, was that they were talking about context all the time. Well, we got to look at the context. Where's this coming from, and who's saying it, and so on
But
and so
then
forth.
that's their point.
And
There's
the-
only 4,000 total people.
A
Right.
small
Employees.
percentage of those are the ones that are actually monitoring.
Correct.
things.
Yeah,
And so a computer's the one who's dictating
probably the
the
bulk of it. I
misgender
suppose.
identification.
Yeah. And then all the anecdotal evidence makes it appear as though the only people getting banned or suspended are ones that are conservatives.
You could probably argue that
Mm-hmm. So
pretty
then-
easily.
So then everybody's calling bullshit on them when they say, "Oh, well, all we're trying to do is create a happy social media atmosphere and get rid of the stuff that is, incitements to violence and targeted harassment
Right.
and that kind of thing." And it all sounds happy and good.
Well, then if you're going by those rules, yeah, and if you want to ban, the hard right wingers, go right ahead, but you have to ban Antifa too. You have to ban Anonymous. You have to ban, all of those other players that are inciting social change by force.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, we'll finish this up here.
That's crazy though. But stop and think about that: 4,000 people that are monitoring hundreds of millions of tweets.
No. We have a small team who's monitoring tweets, and some of them are employed by us. Some of them are contractors throughout the world.
So 4,000 employees total.
4,000 employees who are engineers, who are designers,
Okay.
who are lawyers.
So the
policy
number
experts.
of people actually monitoring tweets is probably less than 1,000.
Well, the reason we don't give out specific numbers is
understand.
we need to scale these dynamically. right? If we see a particular event within a country, we might hire 100 more people on contract to deal with it.
Right.
Whereas they may not be full-time and with us the entire time.
And would they have the ability to take down tweets?
So as we get reports, it goes into a queue, and those are ranked by severity. And then we have people who look at our rules and look at the tweets and look at the behavior and the context around it. And they have the ability to go down that enforcement spectrum that Vijay talked about. One, make people log in, read why it's a violation over a tweet and delete it. Two, temporary suspensions. And finally, a permanent suspension, which is the absolute last resort, which we ultimately do not want to do. We want to make sure that our rules are also guided towards incentivizing more healthy conversation and more participation.
So I think what brought a lot of this on was
It was the Proud Boy banning, wasn't it?
I think that was part of it. And then the Alex Jones thing
Yeah.
a few weeks ago.
deplatforming,
Yeah, there was a sort of a deplatforming on a whole bunch of different things. And it was in a relatively short amount of time, as I recall, right?
Yeah.
YouTube, Facebook,
They all dropped him.
everybody dropped him within a day or two or
days,
something, or like
yeah,
over a
it was
weekend.
quick.
Yeah, and then Twitter did as well. So then, of course, the conspiracy theorists are all, Alex Jones actually knows what's
was-
really going on.
He was
and
getting too close to
the
the
deep
truth.
state is, shutting him down.
I bet this guy's CIA.
No comment on the conspiracy theorists.
I love Alex Jones.
What?
He's so entertaining.
Well, and that's, I mean, he's entertainment. It's,
But he's dead ass serious.
well, yeah.
Did you see the
Him
when he
and Eddie?
flipped out on Eddie?
Oh, he freaked out on Eddie Bravo,
Mm-hmm.
who is another very conspiracy theory. Like, Eddie Bravo will jump on any conspiracy bandwagon. He believes in nothing. He only believes in his iPhone. And, break it. Break Rule 3, Jim.
It's time.
Rule 3 is broken.
You're getting the conspiracy glasses on.
Pull
I
that.
didn't
You
bring
should.
mine.
You should pull up a little clip of that if you can find
All right,
a little
yeah.
clip.
Yeah,
So Eddie Bravo is
chatting.
this like UFC fighter, I think, or just buddy of Joe, who's got a podcast of his own, and has recently turned into a flat earther because, and Alex Jones freaks out on him and calls him crazy,
Mhm.
essentially. There it is. He gets all up in his
So
face.
we're going to get to this next. And I respect you.
Hey, I want
questioning.
you guys to yell at each other for 3 minutes while I go pee.
I got to pee too.
Okay. As you don't talk to yourself. Just hold. We'll do it in shit.
We'll do it in shit.
I'll go
Display
first.
here.
Okay.
Anyways, Eddie,
No,
I'm
what I'm
not
saying is-
you're bad questioning. I get it.
No, you do get it. But you know why? Because
I wore this as a joke for
no,
you.
of course, Alex.
Come on, computer.
You are someone that I could talk to about the flat Earth conspiracy, and you believe in so many crazy things about the government. You don't believe in flat Earth, but you can kind of understand where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah,
right?
my
You
issue
kinda-
is GPS is
right?
real. I know airline pilots that fly from California to places like Australia, and they've got another wing over to Hong Kong, and then they go to Moscow.
You can fly anywhere in the world if it was flat. If it's flat, you could go from east to west just like you could on a ball. You just don't understand what like a pizza is. You could just go anywhere. Like if you're on a flat
Here's
Earth,
what I'm telling
if you're on
you.
a flat
Here's what I'm
Earth, you
telling you.
could travel anywhere. Give me two cities.
Eddie,
you point at two cities and you
because
just
we've
go
been
there.
lied to so much, I get what you
It has
question.
nothing to do with a ball.
I'm not that rich.
No, listen.
But I do
listen.
have the money.
I'm
I
not
will
trying to
pay
convince
for a
you.
research
I'm not
trip.
trying to convince you, Alex. My point is, you gotta find it on your fuck.
Believe it or not, it gets worse.
It gets
after the
way worse than this.
Yeah.
So the flat earthers, man, there's a new Netflix. There's a documentary about it, Under the Dome or something like that I haven't watched yet. But I had an old roommate who texted me and said that I had to, and because it's so silly, and the only reason that Eddie in particular buys this is because he believes the moon landing was faked.
Mm.
And we didn't land on the moon. That it was all just a ploy to bankrupt the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And because they lied about that, because they lied about that, how can I ever trust these people ever again? He gets so passionate that just because NASA burned him once, he thinks that nothing they say, because I've never seen no picture. I've never seen no picture of a round Earth. Man, that looks fake. They had to stitch those together. Well, yeah, dude, because the camera is this big and you got to stitch multiple pieces together. But NASA hires a graphic effects artist, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. Skipping ahead here a little bit.
Listen,
Because they switched to abortion or something at some juncture, right?
Ice wall. Listen, he's the ambassador for flat Earth. He's the ambassador. We're praising him. Forget astronauts. The guy who discovered the flat Earth, the big ice fields. Listen,
that guy's going to be a
This is what we're gonna do, Alex. Alex, this is what we're gonna do. Can you give me 20 seconds
with an entire crew that you're in command of?
No.
You are going to the edge of the flat Earth.
Totally, but it's not gonna be me. I'm gonna designate somebody. 'Cause I'm too scared. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this.
We'll send Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna do this.
Joe,
I'm gonna send someone else.
You're gonna find the edge of the world.
I can't think of a worse plan than an Alex Jones financed expedition
to the ice
wall, spearheaded by Eddie Bravo.
He's like we're in the Game of Thrones.
No, because that's what it is.
There's nothing beyond the wall.
That's what they think. There's just this wall surrounding the pizza that is Earth, and it's holding everybody in.
Did people believe in flat Earth as much as they do now back in the 90s, 80s,
No.
70s?
No,
60s?
I don't think so.
It's
a pretty recent
like
phenomenon.
the 12,
I don't
like
understand
the
where it came from.
1200s or whenever Galileo was
right.
around.
Like, when they were talking about it, World of Warcraft 10 years ago, I laughed and thought people were just trolling, but people legitimately believe this shit.
Oh yeah, there's conventions.
It's crazy.
It's mind-boggling.
Cats that are knocking
I'm
things
going to
off.
film the drop-off with my iPhone.
Yes.
Go pee, man. Go pee. Don't you have to go?
We're gonna send someone else, Alex.
Yeah,
but we're gonna
not
do
anymore.
this.
Hey,
'Cause you know what? We're gonna do
I
this.
gotta
I don't want to be the one that goes.
I
don't want to be the one that
I gotta
goes.
pee in a minute. Let me tell you something right now. Let me tell you something right now. I came here and I proved they're keeping babies alive and taking their organs.
How did you prove that?
That's his.
that's
his new thing.
What?
So there's that New York bill that all the crazies said was going to allow doctors to basically like deliver babies and then just kill them if the parent didn't want them. It's not true, but he believes that, and so he thinks that they're telling the mother that the baby didn't make it. They're keeping it alive in a separate room until the helicopters come in so that they can donate all the organs out and make like 20 grand a baby.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which goes back to that like thing where they said that they were selling baby body parts. Hannity was big on that one for a while, selling baby body parts because some dudes wore a hidden camera into a
and they're having a conversation with Planned Parenthood.
Into a Planned Parenthood and like spliced together a bunch of crappy video and.
Jamie pulled some shit up on Google.
They admit it now. They're normalizing it. No, the governor. Listen to me.
Do you really think there's people out there campaigning for late-term abortions? You think that shit's real? You think that shit's real?
Voted Monday to keep it legal.
Who would do that? Who would do that? Who would campaign for? That's
They
the most
fucking did it,
that's
bro.
the craziest shit
You
ever.
can't fucking admit they're fucking killing already born kids, so you're telling me it isn't real when they had a fucking vote in the goddamn fucking Senate.
That's a conspiracy theory.
I am ready to beat your
That's a
fucking ass.
conspiracy
You
theory.
think you're fucking tough, you're about to get it. Bullshit! They're killing already born babies. Stop fucking lying. God fucking damn it. I'm getting pissed now.
Don't get pissed.
What's funny is Eddie Bravo's way smaller than him, but would just kick his fat little ass.
Oh yeah. I mean, Eddie Bravo's like a jujitsu.
He's a jujitsu
expert
master.
or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm curious enough about that stuff, those abortion laws, though, that I kind of want to dig into them a little bit.
So
I don't know anything. I've heard cursory little bits about the story, but I don't.
Sure.
Yeah. Now I'm curious.
Well, a friend of mine lived in New York, and we had a conversation about this. And I think what it was is if the child was born with some, severe malady that was going to either make the child's life be full of pain or was expected not to live very long, that they could do a what's the term for when you want to kill yourself because you're going to die anyway?
Euthanasia.
Kind of like a euthanasia kind of thing. That's the way I understood it. That's the way I took it. But I don't know the specifics of the bill.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out more about it. That's for sure. Depends on the language of the law. Interesting stuff. Gosh, I remember in law school and con law we hit on abortion a fair bit. Of course, you read your Roe v. Wade and some of those kinds of,
which is kind of a trashy ruling. It's kind of there's room in there, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
it's not the best.
Can't really remember the specifics, but from what I do recall, it was sort of a cut it down the middle type thing. Where I think that's when you had the idea about abortion's pre-viability, and then the states had the ability to say yay or nay on the post-viability or something like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The way I understood it was the way that whoever the swing, I'm sure there was a swing decision. It was probably a 5-4 or something like that.
Could be.
But I think the way that one of the swings was regarding privacy. Like a privacy between a doctor and a patient type thing, like confidentiality.
Yeah.
I'd have to dig in deeper, though.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, so often in those constitutional law cases, it depends on how the issue's framed. So then it's like, okay, well, is some sort of a fundamental right implicated? Yes or no? If not, if it's a fundamental right, then it's got a real high standard for what the government has to be able to demonstrate in order to uphold the law. It's a scrutiny thing where,
and that's tough for me. As different as our country is from, the East Coast to the Midwest to California, I would have no problem, and I'm going to get pounded for saying this, is if we overturn Roe versus Wade and allow the states to make the decisions for themselves. Hey, when is it acceptable for the people that we represent? Or is it acceptable for the people that we represent? Because what is right for the people in Missouri is not necessarily right for the people of California, and vice versa. And giving the states the freedom to create those laws, like New York has done,
Right. The New York law, though, is about. So essentially, it's after 24 weeks, which is third trimester. It allows for the physician to make the call regarding an abortion if the mother's life is in danger or if the fetus is not viable.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. That puts a lot of power into the doctor's hands.
Yeah.
But that's what doctors do. I mean, that's what they do is make determinations about viability and survival chances.
Yeah. And what's wrong with that? I mean, if you have a physician saying, hey, there's a chance that, or you likely will die if you carry this baby to term, or the baby will die if you carry it to term,
or the baby has already died,
or there's something so significantly wrong with the child that they are not going to live. I mean, what's wrong with the ability of the physician to make that determination?
Yeah. I suppose it would be an argument in that it affords too much discretion. So then, with all that discretion, what's the odds that the discretion will be abused?
But there's discretion with everything. The state trooper who's driving down the road can, it's his discretion whether or not he wants to give you no WI because you're driving down the road sideways. I think at some point you have to trust those people to make the right calls. And you have to. I think you have to assume positive intent in those cases. You can't just assume that everybody's, a jerk off and is going to, want to bend the rules to, suit their nature, because that's not what people normally do. I mean, yeah, people do that. People take advantage of that. People take advantage of the flexibility in there. But I don't think you can just assume that physicians are going to because they have the ability to.
Right. I don't think that there's any benefit to any physician to just go around and perform a butt ton of abortions.
Yeah, and I would think, oaths to help and general human nature wanting to err on the side of life. I mean, it's hard for me to.
I can't picture
imagine a scenario where it's a.
I know a lot of physicians, and I don't know one that would take joy in performing a lot of abortions. Might some sadist exist? Sure. That could happen. Is it going to be the norm? No. And I guess, I don't know. I have a hard time leaving it all up to the states, because what gives a state a right to say, okay, we don't like abortion, we're anti-abortion, and so this mother who was raped, impregnated, has to carry her rapist child to term?
I don't disagree with you.
I
don't. But what gives... I mean, we can flip it over and say, what gives our country the right on a federal level to be able to say abortions are legal up to age 9?
Well, to age 9.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, but no one's talking about killing children.
Well, no, but that's how some people see it, though.
Right, but facts matter.
They do, absolutely, and that's really something that a serious conversation to dive into for a later time. But I don't disagree with you. It's really hard for me to know where to stand, because if I had a daughter and she was raped, I'd want her to have the option. But that's a topic that makes me uncomfortable on so many levels. And I'm not a woman. I don't know what it's like to carry a child. I don't know, what it's like to be in that kind of a situation. But it's also hard for me to say, I want, the laws that, everybody from, California and New York are what are right for them aren't necessarily right for me. And so I know that goes the other way too.
True, but I mean, if you err on the side of restriction, like, what is it costing John Doe in Iowa if someone in his state has an abortion? You know what I mean?
I do.
Well, how does that decision between a woman and her doctor impact the life of anybody else?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Exactly.
And that's a really good point.
Exactly. And that's always, I can't believe that there are states, and there are states who have almost drowned out abortion because they just defund clinics and they put them out in the middle of the boonies that are 150 miles. There's one there's like one in Mississippi.
A bunch of white men mansplaining.
Yeah.
Who said that? Greenberg?
Oh, yeah. Why is he still watching? Go take care of your kid.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so much of the abortion discussion can be, I think, hinges on where people think the my body, my choice argument sort of starts to fall apart. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And I guess from my own personal take on it is the later in the pregnancy it gets, the less convinced I am about my body, my choice. You know, I am sympathetic to that viability thing. And if it's a healthy baby, if it could survive outside the womb, then, then it starts to crumble for me.
I know where I can understand what you're saying, but I also know that if you use my body, my choice to create those laws, then you have to legalize prostitution. There's no way around it,
and we should.
I don't disagree with that either. I'm just
hookers should absolutely be illegal.
Not that I
have, and they should be regulated.
Purchase.
And oh no, dude, I don't even like strippers. I don't like strip clubs. Not a fan. Not my thing. But no, I think I think prostitution should be very legal.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either.
You know,
Your body, your choice.
absolutely.
Girl power.
Absolutely.
Or boy power, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
suppose
Or boy power.
Yeah, boys
I
can be
think there's
prostitutes.
Power all around.
Oh yeah, dude, there's all kinds of guy prostitutes.
I can get so rich if I did that.
Just whore myself out.
That's right.
On the nightly fuck pharmacy, baby.
What's the name of that show? That movie? The Gigolo?
Oh,
yeah.
Juice Bigelow.
Deuce Bigelow. That's right.
That's a
What's
Rob
his name?
Schneider.
Rob
That is.
Schneider. Rob Schneider is a carrot. Man, he was. I actually like the second one where they went to Europe better. And he was like working out of Amsterdam, and
I didn't see that one.
Juice Bigelow too, European gigolo. Rob Schneider. Oh man, the South.
I remembered a clip.
Is he an anti-vaxxer?
I think he is an
Oh,
anti-vaxxer.
you're kidding.
Oh, get it.
There goes his respect.
I
Okay.
never had any respect.
Mm,
Oh, let's hear him clarify his position.
There's
on
a-
vaccines.
yeah, this is the one I want to watch.
Well, my wife is 5 months pregnant, and I'm for parental rights, not government coercion telling us what we can do, what we can't do with our kids. There is no other mandated procedure in our, that is. First of all, it's illegal. You can't make people do procedures that they don't want. The parents have to be the ones who make the decisions for what's best for our kids. It can't be the government saying that. It's against the Nuremberg laws. I mean, it's.
I learned about that.
Jim, tell me about this.
Well, yeah, there's a God. I just looked that up the other day, but it was I think it's 1905. There's a Supreme Court case regarding smallpox. Some state,
yes,
Massachusetts
you were
or
talking about this.
Maryland or something like that.
Requiring.
Yeah, they said everybody's got to get a smallpox vaccine because there's a huge government compelling interest in not having its population die from smallpox. So ergo, the vaccine is 100% effective or will effectively eradicate the disease. Ergo, everybody has to get a vaccine, and the court upheld it. So I think that there's precedent there for a mandated federal vaccine potentially if it would, such a law would be written and challenged. I think they would lose.
So for the one of you watching for the first time, we're all pretty heavily pro-vax here. We talk about vaccinations like every time I'm on the show. It just comes up.
Yeah, it does.
Ridiculous, and it's against the state constitution, and it's against their own bylaws here. I mean, I've been reading some legislation that was passed years ago about they used to do state sterilizations, and they thought that was a good thing, So you can't let the state make the decisions. The people have to decide, and parents have to decide, and that's why I'm here.
Pause.
The
So it's also, according to state law, that we have to provide emergent care for somebody. Somebody gets in a car accident right outside a hospital. If it's a kid gets hit by a car right in front of an ER, say, parents aren't around to provide consent, that kid's getting treatment. And that's the law. So that's the government making a choice about a treatment.
Yeah. I'm somewhat sympathetic to where he's coming from as far as the my body, my choice position as far as the vaccines go. But I can see where, if like take the flu, for example, or something where there's a cadre of people who depend on the herd immunity thing because they can't get a vaccine for whatever reason, that sort of thing. And I'm a lot more compelled to get on board with vaccines as a mandate when it can be demonstrated that they're ultra effective and will.
Flu, not so much.
Flu, not so much. Right.
This year, its efficacy was what, like 40%?
That's high.
Yeah.
That's very high. It's actually, it's a real good match this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there are years it's 12, because it's a guess. Like right now, they're already formulating what next year's is just based on epidemiologic data on what they think the strains are going to look like.
Yeah.
Something like MMR, though, I mean, you don't get the measles.
Or the mumps. Or rubella.
Or rubella.
Yeah.
Like those things were wiped out, essentially. Except for
Smallpox,
pockets.
Yeah.
Yes, polio. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. I guess my issues with it are, I guess I'm probably just too much of a libertarian to want to put up with somebody saying, "Well, you have to do this because health and safety." You know, I mean, that drives me nuts. Compel me with the argument. Let me make my own choice about it, and then I'll come to the right conclusion because I'm a rational actor. But
people aren't rational.
I get it, but you know, that's my fantasy land. That's where I want to live.
But to go to a public school.
Yeah, I'm all for that. You know, if it's, you know, you've got kids going to public school unvaccinated, that gets kind of sketchy.
Okay,
you know?
so yeah, let's follow that train of logic down its path. So we have, you know, a government-funded education. Shouldn't the government be able to mandate the qualifications for the children to receive their education, like vaccination?
Yeah.
If the government is paying for you to get an education, in the place where the government's paying for that education, should it also have the ability to say, you know what, if you're going to get your free education here, you need to have a vaccination?
Well, I think they do, but you're offered. I think there's religious exemptions from that, and then maybe some states have a personal choice exemption.
Those are going away, though.
But yeah, I mean,
except Iowa. Iowa's trying to add one.
I don't know the numbers, but. Yeah, it's like if you've got a religious reason that you can't get vaccinated, then they'll cut you slack. You know, but yeah, I mean,
then you can pay for a private school and not take advantage of the government's free education.
Or homeschool or do something different.
There was a big anti-vax community in. I lived in western Wisconsin, a little town called Viroqua, and it's about as liberal as you can get. And you know, we're people on street corners, you know, selling, you know, milk fresh from the cow from underneath the trench coat. I mean, it was there was a big anti-vax populace there, and you know, this conversation regularly came up, and a lot of those people, they did send their kids to the Waldorf school or, you know, another private school. But you know, in the school stance was, I mean, yeah, you have to keep your kid vaccinated unless you just don't want your kid to get vaccinated, in which case you have to sign a form. That made me really uncomfortable. You know, knowing that, you know, yeah, we have these laws, but we don't really have these laws. We have these rules, but we don't really have these rules. And, you know, it makes that atmosphere so unsafe for the kids who, for medical reasons, can't get vaccinated. It just, kind of blew me away a little bit.
What always makes me laugh is it's the extreme left and the extreme right that don't do the vaccination thing. Like, it's either the super yuppie Portland crowd or like the backwoods Idaho. Don't tread on me
The
types.
idea that the state is going to tell me what I can do with my kids.
And Rob Snyder's
First of all,
getting
the
that way.
doctors are not going to tell you both sides of the issue. They're not, because they are. They're told by the pharmaceutical industry, which makes billions of dollars, that it's completely safe.
Spurge?
No. No. There was just an independent study of 645,000 children about MMR and autism, and there was a 7% less case of autism in the folks who got vaccinated.
So we can vaccinate. No, I'm not going to say that. But
no, I know what you're going to say.
The findings are actually very contrary to the popular leftist and rightist opinion.
Well, yeah, and I think they come at it from different ways. I think the left comes at it from a way of toxins are bad, and the right comes at it from a personal liberties standpoint. Less so that toxins are bad. And it's all based on one article in the Lancet. Guy lost his medical license. Like, it's been retracted. It's been debunked for 20 years. And it came out 23 years ago. Like, it's
Yeah.
It's a nothing burger.
Hey, and let me tell you, they've gone from when you and I were kids, you had like 8 shots. Now that's up to 70 shots and multi-shots. And they don't tell you that.
Is that true, Spurge, that the amount of shots have increased over
Yeah, I mean,
time?
It's not 70.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not 70. And what they do is they get like a Cabbage Patch doll and they'll stick all the syringes in at the same time. And be like, this is how many vaccines your child is going to receive.
But I mean, no, really, there's a handful of things that we vaccinate against, but there are several things that we have to give booster shots for, or we have to give
Correct.
supplemental shots for.
Correct.
So it's not like we're giving the kid, 25 or 30 different vaccines. We're giving him like 6 vaccines, but we have to give him in different doses at different ages to make it effective.
Correct, and that's how it's been studied
And
and
that's-
shown to be safe
Mm.
repeatedly and repeatedly.
The safety of these things. There's no efficacy study. In other words, if you and
There
I were
is.
going to do, if I was going to have a car seat, okay, I was going to say, here's the car seat. You'd have to show some proof that it's a safe seat, right? You'd have to say, here's 1,000 accidents with it, and here's 1,000 without it. And they go, okay, you can compare. They have refused to, and no vaccine company, none of the pharmaceutical companies and government tests have done 1,000.
Isn't the proof in the pudding, though, with the vaccine?
The proof is name somebody you know with polio.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes. I mean, that's the obvious proof, not to mention the numerous efficacy studies that do exist. And so there's efficacy studies, the proof in the pudding, as you said. There's observational data. Yes. But there is an immorality inherent to that study. That's like saying that if we found a cure for AIDS, say you could cure AIDS, but we had to do an efficacy study, so we had to do a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. We have something that's worked in 10,000 people, but we have to do this RCT, which requires a placebo group and an active treatment group. Is it ethical to conduct that experiment? It is not.
Yeah, because you've got all those people that are sick that
Get placebo and die.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. It's the same thing that we run into when we do like pediatric studies. There's a huge ethical component to designing those studies when you know you have a treatment that has been shown efficacious, that you can't give a placebo to a kid and his family, telling them they're part of this study that could cure and fix them, and then they die because they were getting saline. It's that's a really interesting talk and argument and about the ethics behind different medical research.
That's interesting.
It's a wide ranging. I dealt with a bit in my research, not so much really, because I was just getting people stoned and putting them in a simulator. but I did have to, I'd had to do a bunch of ethics training to pass through institutional review board stuff and things like that. Anytime you're dealing with human subjects, there's a lot of ethical concerns, and of course our lawyers have to look everything over. And
Yep.
got to pay those lawyers.
That's right.
Kids with the shots and 1,000 without. They refuse to because it's not what they want to hear. Because what they're doing right now is that the pharmaceutical industries are doing fine. They're making billions of dollars, and they're increasing more shots, and it's at the cost of our children because they don't have the efficacy of these shots have not been proven, and the toxicity of these things. We're having more and more side effects. You're having more and more autism. When you go from
No. You're having more and more autism because when was this posted? Do you know? Or when this interview was given?
Shoot.
It looks like the 90s.
Yeah, it's probably been a while.
September 12th was when it was published.
2012, yeah, so it's at least a few years old.
So I can't remember, what was he just talking about? Oh, more and more autism.
Yeah.
So right around that time, the DSM expanded the autism spectrum. So now anyone with Asperger's is autistic. Anybody with all these different things is considered an autistic person. So we expanded the definition of
more
autism.
Diagnoses.
Yeah. And there's more people looking for these diagnoses. See, that's the thing. When you come out with a new diagnosis or you expand diagnoses, it's fresh in the physician's mind, right? They're reading their continuing ed. They're picking up things and it's at the forefront of their mind, they're more likely to diagnose it at that point. And that is really what the increase in autism he speaks of, which it is. You look at the raw numbers, absolutely. But that's not causation.
Right. It's just a correlation.
It's a correlation. It's not causation.
Autism, which was unheard of in America in 1930.
Correct.
So it was 1 in 5,000 after seeds started being preserved with mercury, which is the second most toxic thing on this planet next to plutonium. And then you go to, let's go up a couple of decades. By 1990, it was 1 in 200. Now it's 1 in 88. Now, truthfully, it's true that a lot of the autism rates are grouped into one, but there is something that's really happening.
No.
And one of the most vulnerable things you can do to a child who doesn't have an immune system is give them a shot. And I'll just give you one example.
Are you getting triggered, Spurge?
Little trigger. Little triggered. I want to hear his one example, though.
Oh, okay.
I got to see what...
Take the hepatitis B.
Okay, Hep B.
Now, hepatitis, you're only going to get that from drug use, and you're going to get that from intravenous drug use, and again from sexual contact. And yet, they won't let a baby out of the hospital unless insisting on getting the shot. I'm sorry. That's an unnecessary shot that they don't need to have, especially when the baby's immune system isn't developed. The baby's immune system is the mother's immune system. So...
okay, stop. So he's saying that because the baby's immune system isn't developed, if we're giving the shot, which is part virus, right? That's how vaccines work, is you give an inoculated virus, a dead virus, you give some DNA material, your body builds up antibodies against it. So is he saying because their immune system isn't developed, we're giving all these people hepatitis? Where are the people with hepatitis then? If that's his argument, is that their immune system's not developed. You can't be giving them vaccines.
Well, and if he's concerned about a weakened immune system in a baby, I mean, I would think he would like vaccines then, because isn't your immune system demonstrably better after a vaccine?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
This argument just doesn't hold water.
I don't get it.
But it's Rob Schneider, and look how you paused him.
You know, there are all sorts of extra measures that we take when a baby is born to make sure that it doesn't get sick. You know, they cream the Vaseline in the baby's eyes and nose and mouth in case the mother has like a bacterial STD. You know,
or viral.
Or viral.
HSV.
Yep. So I mean, there are a lot of things that we do expressly do protect children from that. And it's
don't kiss the baby. If you got a cold sore, if you're a person that has HSV on your mouth, then they can develop herpes and encephalitis, actually, meningitis, which can cause them to die pretty quick.
Yeah.
There's a big rash of it out in New York in the Hasidic Jewish community. They had performed the bris, the circumcision, and the rabbi, the thing was like something, this is going to sound gross, about closing like the wound that they made after the circumcision by kissing it of sorts. And then these babies would get herpes.
Yeah.
And then it would go to their brain.
Oh, geez.
And it would cause them to seize out, and they were just dying. There's a huge rash of it. And I believe changed how they had to do their ceremony that they'd been doing. Yeah, the bris.
There's a joke in there I'm going to avoid.
Beyond ridiculous, it's criminal. And so here we are. I'm up here, flying up here, to testify to this lunacy. And I can't believe that they're willing to continue this. And people have to stand up. I mean, that's the part about a democracy. People have to step up, and that's what I'm here to do today.
Do you think there's too much government intervention in our lives today, whether or not you live in California or New York or anywhere in the U.S.?
I mean, but there is some. I mean, there needs to be some. I mean, governments need to protect roads, and I agree with that. But government can't make decisions on what I do to my body and my children's body. They have to stay out of that. That's not something that's open for discussion. I got to make my choice, and I'm going to do what's best for my child. And to the idea that they're going to mandate that if I don't want to vaccinate my kid, they can't go to school unless they get a consent from a doctor. That's lunacy, because you're assuming that the doctor's going to show you both sides, that there's benefits and there are risks. And there's a great book for people to go and get. It's called The Vaccine Guide by Dr. Neustedler. Read that, and then become informed. And then you can make an educated decision, not a government mandate. And so I'm against this by Assemblyman
4 years of pre-med, 4 years of med.
Where the hell do these college dropouts who ran off to become actors, get off thinking that they're an expert on something like.
Because they read a book. They saw a YouTube video in Eddie Bravo's case.
Yeah. And I don't understand the distrust of the doctor. I mean, because he thinks that the doctor's getting a kickback from the pharmaceutical company or something, so they're incentivized to.
In some circumstances.
That's exactly what they think. There's a lot of cases, absolutely, zero of which have ever had to do with vaccines. Yeah. Good Lord, there's a great website that came out of the Affordable Care Act, I believe, and it's called Dollars for Docs, and you can go on and you can type up any doctor's name. And their location and stuff, and you can see how much and what they got paid for by any pharma company. And typically, it's reimbursement for speaking fees. They'll pay them to come in, or consulting fees, things like that. Most of the time, it's a couple $100 here and there, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Sometimes you'll find some crazy ones.
Yeah.
But 0% of the time, it has to do with vaccines. Vaccines aren't where pharma companies make their money.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not.
It's make
Viagra. They make their money. Yeah, they made a shit ton of money on Viagra. That is cheap, by the way. I did a price check today. It's $6 a pill.
Wow.
$6 a boner, man. And you can usually get by with half.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good long conversation with a patient about Viagra regarding prices and.
Box of 30 boner pills here that can be stretched to 60 if you.
When I started pharmacy school, it was $70.
Yeah,
it was $70 a tablet.
Jesus, seriously?
$70 a bony.
Wow.
Yep.
Does insurance cover boner pills?
Yeah, it usually covers 6 per 30 days. Typical run-of-the-mill commercial insurance covers 6. There's some that won't. Medicaid doesn't. Medicare, it depends on the plan, on your supplement. Medicaid doesn't. I had another patient who got real upset about that. It made me send in for a prior authorization. They came back and they said, no, there's no medical necessity. But
mental well-being.
Yeah.
Mental health.
I don't know.
There is a medical necessity for Viagra.
Yeah, you could have appealed it. But no, yeah, boners are not as expensive as they used to be. Everyone's moving. A lot of people moving towards Cialis though.
Okay.
It has my favorite generic name. It's Tadafenil. Tadafenil. It's like TADAFINIL.
Is there? I mean, awesome. How do they work? What's the difference between the two of them?
So they're both nitrous oxide increasers, so they increase the amount of nitric oxide in your blood. Okay. So it's like the workout guys that take a bunch of nitrous and then you get super vascular.
Can
essentially.
You get the same effect by just
it acts like nitroglycerin, right? So when you're having a heart attack, everything's clamping down. You take a nitrostat under your tongue. It increases blood flow because it dilates your vessels. Yeah. A very significant one too. And this one just it does it your whole system. Like people can get very dizzy. You can't do it if you're taking nitrates for chest pain. Otherwise your blood pressure can drop out on you. And they're not by any means like for people who have any sort of cardiac like deals, blood pressure issues. Like really need to look at your doctor there. Don't order them from what's the GetRoman.com. That's the one I listen to all the networks. Fox and CNN always have this commercial for GetRoman.com where you can just call. You don't have to go into your doctor and have a hard conversation about your soft dick.
Right.
You just call some dude on the phone and they'll mail you the dick pills.
That sounds kind of sketchy.
Yeah, it's super sketchy. And I don't know how it's legal. Iowa was trying to crack down on that shit of people peddling pharmaceuticals over the internet and over the phone and allowing them to ship. I think we're trying to disallow them to ship to the state because they don't have a license to practice pharmacy in our state. But there's all kinds of sketchy ones popping up like that.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, and there's also telemedicine now, which is actually kind of a cool deal. Like you can webcam with a doc.
That is cool.
For some drugs, it's okay. You know, for drugs that don't require you to have a physical exam, if you're doing like an antidepressant, anxiety drug, something like that,
fine.
Absolutely. But if it's a blood pressure med,
yeah.
You know, and a lot of times I'll see people that'll come in and have a Z-Pack. Okay. Like for a sinus infection or something like that. They talk to their doctor, it was like this. The doctor's like, okay, you probably have a sinus infection. Here you go. Or have heartburn. But things where you have to get like concrete evidence, like cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, things like that.
Sure.
You can't do that over the.
I don't remember the last time I was prescribed an antibiotic.
Yeah.
They really
Once in pharmacy school I was. I got a Z-Pack one time then.
Yeah. What is that overprescription of antibiotics a thing still? Or
Yeah. Superbugs are coming, man. The first
superbugs.
Yeah, get it, bro. That's one of my favorite ones. Because people go get antibiotics for every viral sniff.
When you have a cold, you race into the doctor.
Rhinovirus.
Yeah.
And so now they just don't work as well anymore. The nice thing about working at a hospital always was we'd get cultures, right? So we'd get like saliva, we'd get urine, we'd get blood, we'd be able to grow it in a petri dish, be like, oh, this is a bacteria that shouldn't be there. Let's run a sequence on that bacteria. So then we run a susceptibility test and we can tell which antibiotics are going to work on this bug and which are not. When I worked in the cystic fibrosis ward, those kids, so they get chronic lung infections because they get super sludgy mucus in their lungs that trap bacteria. And so they're always prescribed tons and tons of antibiotics. And they grow the most gnarly superbugs that are just resistant to everything. Like there was this one kiddo who grew a Pseudomonas, which is it's a CF is chronic with this Pseudomonas aeruginosa. It's a bacteria that forms this real thick biofilm. It's real hard to kill. But there's some drugs that usually work pretty well. None of those drugs would work on this girl, except this drug called colistamethate, which is one of the like doomsday antibiotics. It's one that's only ever prescribed. It's prescribed to maybe a couple hundred people in the U.S. a year, something like that, because we're saving it in case like that bug comes around. But it would only work though on her, and so we had to dose her up with that, which was wild.
I had
What are the side effects of something that strong?
Colistamethate. Colistamethate will wipe out. Well, it's bad. Like
so, it would devastate your GI tract and
because
bacteria in your body.
It'll kill every bacteria in your body. Okay. So you'll shit your brains out. It will. God, what is it all with colistamethate? I've only used it once. I think that one might be. It might take down white blood cells too. Check. You go on. Jim had something.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna say, the last time I got an antibiotic when I was in law school, what happened was I had a routine, what I would call just a regular cold, and after 3-4 days, maybe a week, I felt like I'd kind of kicked it, and then, but I still had some congestion and so forth. Then next thing you know, my ear is killing me, and I keep coughing, and I still have my nose is plugged and all of that, and it just goes on and on and on. And I just think, well, another day and another day. Next thing I know, it's like I've been sick for like 30 days, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go in and talk to the Drake
student
clinic thingy. I can go see a nurse practitioner or whatever they have in there. And she's like, oh, yeah. How long have you been having symptoms? He's like, really?
About a month.
30 days. And she's like, yeah, you probably got an ear infection and a whatever.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so. But that was the last time I had any antibiotic. And I guess I felt like I got a gold star that day because it was maybe one of the rare times when it's justified for a.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The colistamethate, it's the nephrotoxicity. So the kidney toxicity.
Mhm.
It'll shut down your kidneys,
Jeez.
and then it can build up. And if it builds up, then you have seizures.
Oh Jesus! So how do they flush out of your system after it builds up?
Well,
Or does it just camp out there and?
you just can't kill the kidneys. Like you have to monitor kidney function. And if it starts declining, you have to discontinue.
Gotcha.
She did it inhaled though too. We'd aerosolize it,
Mm,
and she'd do like a nebulizer treatment of it.
wowzers. That sounds intense.
Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, well, the superbug thing is kind of scary.
I think it's very scary. I think, but I do think like what was the big one out of Congo? Ebola.
Oh yeah.
The whole Ebola scare and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was wild, wasn't it?
Mhm.
That was.
And I'm just waiting. Like we're due for a plague.
Yeah.
We really are. We're due
pretty
for
darn overpopulated.
We're due for like a shitty virus that just swarms, aerosolizes. Contagion.
Mhm.
that movie.
Oh yeah.
Because all it takes is get into one international hub.
Yep.
And then it's
SFO,
everywhere. Yeah.
LaGuardia,
Mhm.
Denver, O'Hare, and it's all over the world
Right.
within
Esterville Airport.
like
Yep.
30 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Esterville Airport. I've landed at the Esterville Airport.
Oh yeah,
once.
me too.
Me
Many
too.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in flight school.
Thank Tony Condon.
You got with Tony too?
Tony too, and I used to when we were going to Iowa State. Sometimes we'd fly home for the weekend or something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really rad.
Yeah.
That's
We'd,
fun.
He'd get like 8 or 10 half-baked pizzas, and we'd take it home and fill the freezer up, and we'd live off pizza for however long.
He's a damn good pilot. He
Yeah.
has won several gliding competitions, like
Yeah.
international gliding
Oh yeah,
competitions.
he's on
Yep.
Team USA.
That's right.
Where did he say he was heading this year?
He went to Australia around Christmas. I
Yeah.
know.
That's
He and,
so cool.
he and his wife were down there for quite a while, maybe 3 weeks to a
Mhm.
month, I think. Yeah, so
And I think last year it was like Eastern Europe or something.
he's
like
been
that.
to Lithuania,
Lithuania.
Yeah.
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 and
I saw
but yeah,
that.
this glider thing is taking him all
That's
across
so freaking
creation. Yeah,
cool.
it is cool.
Tony too. Pizza,
Yep.
pizza, pizza.
Yeah, we gotta Pizza's 2000. We gotta have him back on the podcast again.
He was good.
He was
He
good,
was
yeah.
great. Him and Ben.
Ben's a donut earther, I think.
Oh God.
What's
I
a
think
donut earther?
I think you missed out on that. It's
They
sort of
think-
flat Earth, but
Except they think that the
it's shaped
world's
like
a donut.
Then he was talking
Like
about
there's a middle. Gone.
yeah.
Is that like one of Homer's laws of?
Yeah, dude, it's a thing. I just learned about this recently.
He was like, well, it's like probably where Bigfoot comes from and stuff, or whatever the heck he said. You gotta fast forward into about I don't know the full 6-pack
I
into
was
the
gonna say,
podcast.
that
and
went like
That was a
like
couple-
2 hours.
2.5 hours. Yeah, that was a long one. But yeah, Ben starts getting into the conspiracies a little bit there towards the end.
He's got some good ones. I mean, he's a full Illuminati like. And Alex Jones, I was listening to his stuff with the Illuminati, and he thinks that they know about the 7th dimension or something like that, and they're trying to suck the youth of the children
Mhm.
so they can use that power to go to the 7th dimension. The global elite are the ones
Yeah,
that
the
go to-
globalists.
the one that go to Bohemian Grove and worship the owl. Okay, I have to say though, have you seen that video?
Ugh.
Alex Jones like snuck into Bohemian Grove
Mm.
and
No,
like
I haven't
has
seen that
video of all these rich like crazy people. This is the thing that happens. Had a bunch of like rich like fuck you money people
Yeah.
in masks praying to an owl statue.
Hmm.
Bohemian Grove people, look it up.
Okay.
And it's video evidence. I don't know what they're doing. He thinks that they're worshiping like the owl god something, so that'll take him through the 7th dimension and stuff.
I mean, that's not any more fucked up than Scientology.
No, it's not. No,
And I mean,
Mormonism.
And that's
That's it.
relatively
Yeah,
accepted.
He captured this video.
Okay. It's like
It's
an hour
it's super
but-
long. Yeah, just flip through the middle. But
There's one up there that you can drive a car.
Where's Bohemian Grove?
I believe it is Northern California.
Well, why does that not surprise me?
They're playing bagpipes.
Scottish.
Is this a ritual?
Yeah, this is part of the ritual. If you do the little preview thing and like skirt around the bottom to see where we can actually see
some stiffs.
Oh, there you go. There's the big fire with the owl statue.
Did I go past it?
Nope, right there.
He's so pissed off at me.
I thought so. So this is a thing that happens, and like I don't have a good explanation for it.
Well, how do they get from? Okay, so we got a bunch
This is their version of Burning Man.
Establishment lackeys witnessing these sinister activities. Remember, in Babylon and Tyre, they would throw their children into fiery pits. Look at the size of the hands compared to the rest of the body.
How do you get from that to like making deals with the
Now, of course, it's been airbrushed.
seventh dimension aliens and stuff? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so there's this giant owl statue, and people out there in robes doing what looks like a cult thing. Again, I have no clue what's going on. And I don't know that I haven't dove into it deep enough to see if there's like explanations out there. But it's pretty good ending music, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, on that note, why don't we wrap it up? Thanks again, guys, for being here. Episode 17.
Almost there. What are we doing for 20?
Yeah, we should have a big episode 20 party.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. We'll have to think of something.
Well, the Grumses won't be here. So.
Yeah, right. We've got free reign to do whatever we want, right? Okay.
Spectacular. All right.
Well, let's let the cultists play us out here.
All right. We need to work on our 80s.
Yeah.
So I think we're done. Later.